Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I have a chalk drawing to share with you for our Middle Ages main lesson block. I am using some Sargent Art chalk pastels. I really like these chalk pastels. They give a beautiful, vibrant color. I'm also using the main lesson book from liveeducation.com as inspiration for our drawing. I went ahead and I just drew these sketches before starting the chalk drawing. All right, so I kind of want two chalk drawings on one chalkboard. I'm trying to make the castle in the foreground and then a mosque up on a hill in the background. And while I do achieve that goal, I do not achieve the correct perspective. And you'll be able to take a look at that a little bit better at the end of this video. I am using my sketch kind of loosely and an image from the main lesson book a little bit more in order to do this chalk drawing of this castle here. I'm okay with the way that it turned out. I wish that I had done something that was a little bit more maybe iconic for a castle so that you could distinguish between these towers and then the drawbridge. And so when it's done, it's going to look a little bit compact, and a lot of the towers and the walls, they're going to look like they're kind of squished together. And so I wasn't super pleased with the way that it turned out. And once I was done, I also realized that those towers that I drew in the background are way too big for the scale of this castle. So I erase the tops off of them and I just make them a little bit shorter. Okay, so I'm trying to do a moat around this castle and it should be fairly simple, but I have to say that this whole chalk drawing had its challenges, but overall, I'm super pleased with the way it turned out, despite all the little things that I don't like about it. I really like the lower part of the castle. I think all the scale and proportion on this part of the chalk drawing is perfect. I love it. It's just that when you step back and you look at the rest of the castle, you can kind of see where it just goes kind of wonky. All right, so I'm just adding a ton of gray and I'm trying to make gray blocks. I'm trying to make those towers in the background look like they're in the background, and it's just not working. And to be honest, adding a lot of these details took a ton of time. So if you just did all gray and then didn't worry about making it look like there were stone blocks, then you could get the whole chalk drawing done super fast with minimal detail, and it would really cut your time down at least by half. This entire chalk drawing took about an hour and 15 minutes. It does not include some of the touch-ups I did afterwards, but you could probably get this down to about 30 minutes for each chalk drawing, maybe even less. All right, so I am just going to add a few more details at this point just to give the castle some depth and to really accentuate those stone blocks. And this is the part that took another 15 minutes to do, that in the end, it really doesn't make a huge difference between this point in the chalk drawing versus just a few minutes ago when I kind of stepped back and I showed you the whole castle. All right, so I'm using the Live Education Waldorf curriculum as inspiration for both this unit as well as part of this chalk drawing. I do make a couple of changes at the end. My daughter saw the whole castle and wanted those tall pillars that you kind of see like in cartoon castles. So I added those at the very end. I don't show myself drawing them, but at the very end of this video, you'll be able to see a little clip of the turrets at the very top, as well as all the materials that I have collected for this main lesson block. All right, so I'm adding a nice blue sky in the background. I like my chalk drawings to just be completely filled with color all over the place. And I have to say that I was running out of that blue chalk really fast. And so there wasn't a ton of it left, but I did manage to finish this whole chalk drawing with a nice coat of blue in the background. I'm adding some flags at the top of these towers, and in part I did see this like in another image in one of our other books, but also I wanted a little bit of color and add a little bit of depth to the chalk drawing, and so that's why I added them. But then later I decided to change out the colors and kind of make them all different colors rather than all just one color. All right, so now it's time to work on the other side of this chalk drawing, and that's because I am going to be adding a separate unit following our Middle Ages unit, which is completely devoted to the Silk Road and the Islamic Empire during the Middle Ages, which is considered the Golden Age of Islam. And I wanted to do something separate for this rather than include it in our Middle Ages main lesson block, in part because I have so many materials for our Middle Ages, and in part because I really want to devote a separate time and separate energies towards this particular main lesson block, which I'm going to be creating completely on my own. I do not have a main lesson block for that. And so I am collecting my own resources and creating a curriculum to go along with the different events that occurred in the Islamic Empire at that time, as well as notable figures and the science and culture and all these other things that would otherwise get a little bit overlooked in a Middle Ages unit. And I really wanted to distinguish that and also focus on that. And that is why I have a mosque up on a hill, or a masjid up on a hill. And I really wanted this to be kind of in the background, as though the castle's in the foreground, and then the background, it's as if you're like, traveling down this Silk Road all the way to this masjid in the background, but it doesn't look like that at all. In the end, it looks like the masjid is huge compared to the castle. But I liked the way it turned out so much that I decided to keep it, even though this was my second attempt. The first one I think was too big, so I erased it and tried to make a smaller one. And I love the way the second one turned out, that despite the fact that the proportions are off, or the scale and the perspective, I decided to keep it anyway. And this is just for our Silk Road portion of this massive main lesson block that we're doing. You can find more information about the resources that I'm using on my website at pepperandpine.com. And you can also find pictures and other resources related to this main lesson block. All right, so I'm nearly done. I am just going to add blue for the entire sky. I'm also going to use my fingers just to blend the blue up on the sky. I didn't do that for other parts of the chalk drawing, but this is basically what it looks like in the end. I'm really pleased with the way that it turned out, and you can see those slight changes at the very end of this video. All right, so if you'd like to see more of our videos in this main lesson block on the Middle Ages, you can tap on the screen right now. If you want more information about the resources that we're using, you can find it on my website at pepperandpine.com. And don't forget that you can see what our homeschool looks like on a daily basis by visiting me on Instagram at pepperandpine.